Go.
Hey, sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right. We understand we're all busy.
Calendar can sometimes get so crazy, and I just get lost in my stuff. So.
Oh, no. It's totally understandable. You're just working, and then you go, oh, what time is it? Holy crap.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah, no.
Mr. Lewis.
It
is an honor to meet you, sir. So that's the first thing I want to say. You are the genesis of why I am here today.
Well, I don't know about all that. Well, this is Matt. Not Soldier Girl. Christian Andrews said that she tried to be here, but it seems like something came up for her. She said that she'll be sending you potentially sending you an email a little bit later about explaining her circumstances and stuff like that. But before we get started, did you have any questions about anything that I sent you, or what this is really about and stuff like that?
No, I didn't. I read through it. I didn't study it or anything like that closely. But I read through it. I get it. Since but sure, I'm happy to do the interviews. These are easier because I don't have to do all the typing, so it's perfect.
No, exactly. I always prefer okay, never mind. 1 second. That's she just never mind. No, I'm sorry. 1 second. Never mind. Okay. Anyways, I'm sorry. Yeah, that. Okay. He's here. All right. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
No problem.
Let me turn that off so it doesn't disturb us. Okay. So let me get the questions out. I'll start with the basic questions that I started last time. That I did last time with other individuals, because I didn't feel the need to recreate an entire list. So could you please? So your name's Lewis Castle, and could you briefly describe your past education and field of study?
Sure. Well, I'm Lewis Castle, the co-founder of Westwood Studios with Brett Sperry, and I went to UNLV. I was fine arts and computer science. Studying to be a dual baccalaureate. I didn't get degrees, but was there for about 5 years almost.
Oh, okay.
While actually creating Westwood, so they were sort of overlapping with each other. So I was almost at an MFA and almost my CSC bachelor's degree. So that was really my formal education. And then most of my education for making games was back then. There weren't any places to go to do that. So that's all on the job.
Okay. Okay. Speaking of on the job, you definitely held a lot of positions. Currently, you're at your own production studio, but I'm just curious, what other positions do you say that really stand out to you that you've had throughout the years?
Oh wow. Well, I've done. I started as a programmer, a low-level programmer, doing assembly language and such at Westwood. And of course, because it was just a small studio, I did a lot of different things. As the company grew, I grew through the various ranks of roles you would have in bigger and bigger companies, eventually becoming the chief creative officer, chief strategy officer, operations officer. I did just about everything. Now, the only thing I didn't do is legal. I never studied any law. But it's truly, I mean, I was the CFO when we were acquired by Electronic Arts. When I started as a CFO, it was 29 people and maybe $3 million a year or $6 million a year. It wasn't a big company, but by the time we got acquired by EA, we were 250 people. We had products in 70 countries, and I was still the CFO. So it was really a real job by then. So I've done a lot of different things. I guess I bounced between during my career. I bounced between being a technical leader, a creative leader, a designer, and then those were really my principal roles. And then because of the size of the company, because of my desire to stay in control, I did production, executive production, operations, and of course the overall leadership as CEO of the company for a couple of years as well.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
Yep.
That's pretty.
Since then, I was the CEO of a company for Instant Action called Instant Action for IAC. I was the vice president of studios for Zynga, and I was a chief strategy officer for a public company, a public casino gambling supply company called Shufflemaster. Role was about 8 months or so before we announced the sale. I was in charge of mergers and acquisitions, all of research and development, which is about 700 people. I built the iGaming business for them. And then we sold the company about 18 months after I started, and for a little bit less than $1 billion of increased value to the shareholders. It was about $480 million when I started, and a little over $1.3 billion sale. So a pretty impressive quick run there. And then that was end of 2013 is when I left. It was after the sale was completed, and for the last year plus, I've been doing contracting work for a bunch of different companies, actually. So I'm still in the games business. I went and got a registered investment advisory license for the state of Nevada to open a hedge fund, and so I'm doing that.
Okay.
Because I still have that financial background.
Nice.
But I've never left making games, so I'm still working with game making companies, and I'm contracting with Kixeye, and was with TapsIn for a little while there, and working with Funny or Die. So I'm pretty busy.
Oh, no, it definitely sounds like it. Speaking of pretty busy, roughly how much time do you think we have right now for this?
I've got a half hour if you need more, or probably can go more.
Okay, let me just set it for half an hour because just trying to make sure that everybody uses their time effectively. All right.
Okay.
All right.
So sorry for the long answer.
No. Your answer's fine. No. I'm not trying to suggest that you gave me a long answer. I'm like, I don't want a long answer from you. I'm just trying to make sure that if you have something to be and we all go to, then we all make sure our schedules work out. All right. That's pretty extensive. But would you be able to describe any common themes in your responsibilities in your different roles and what you were specifically kind of tasked with or in charge of supervising and stuff like that?
I guess that especially as my career has evolved, the thing that I'm often put in, a position I'm often put in, is to evaluate operational procedures around creative and technical businesses, and the financial stuff just sort of seems to be a little bit of a bonus on the side there, because most of the people want my creative input. Most of the jobs I'm doing are design-related jobs, but it's not just designing the product necessarily. It's also looking at the teams and looking at how the companies are organized, and so I'd say that it centers around the cross section of operations, technical, and creative.
Okay, that's quite a lot. All right. What
I'm
kind
not.
Go ahead.
I'm terribly. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine.
I'm not often brought in to be. I'm a pretty high-priced contractor, so I'm not often brought in to do very specific, very what I don't know to call it, like crafted work, as it were. Like, so recently I have been hired to do like design documents, but that's generally not the best use of my time. So.
Okay, so what kind of a typical challenge would you say that you usually face on a regular basis when you come into work and you're like, okay, hey, I have to deal with this?
Most of the time it's time is the enemy.
Yeah.
So it's looking at where we're at with the product, reviewing it. Nowadays, especially, we're usually looking at the metrics of what the business is doing at the time. Most games that I get involved with are already live in at least a test market. Sometimes it's still in the concept phase, but even then, even in a concept phase, it's still deciding what the expected outcomes are going to be and such. So you're looking at, okay, when are we going to bring this to market? How do we get our lifetime value at a level where it's going to be acceptable for the cost of acquisition? What kind of things can we put into the product? What kind of people do we need if we don't have them already? And whatever we have, how can we make the most out of what we have? So it's really more of a planning role than anything else. So I review a lot of documents, and comment on them, and I participate in brainstorming sessions and participate in brief reviews. It's almost like a creative director role, but since I'm not in-house, I'm usually the creative consultant, as it were, or creative kibitzer. But it ends up being a very satisfying thing to do, and I'm very happy doing it.
All right, great, very very interesting. Like, would you say that, like, as a consultant, you definitely get a different perspective than being in-house, and sometimes consultants notice things about the companies that they come into more than the actual in-house people, because the in-house people are there day in and day out. Do you kind of have that experience? Is there anything as a consultant when you go into a company, or they're like, hey, we need you to fix this or do this, that you kind of notice and be like, that's not what I expected, or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say that's part of it for sure. That's often why they want the external perspective, But I think it's more about most of my clients, and I'm really more of a contractor. I do a little consulting, like where I'll go on a single thing and review it, but most of the time I end up signing a long-term contract with somebody, so it's a little bit more hands-on than most consultants. But that being said, it's still very much that role, which is, okay, I'm not tasked on the list of I'm not on the list of content creators or providers, so all the things that I add are always additive value. And really, my job to be worth it is to try to leverage my experience, help the team get to where they need to get as efficiently as possible. So I don't know if it's so much of an external view. I don't know if I would place that really. I don't think that's really it. I think it's more about the accumulation of my experience is what really people are looking to use. Gotcha.
And speaking of the accumulation of all your experiences, been around for a long time, started Westwood, all this stuff. Are there any like common issues or personnel issues or business type of issues like like retention or engagement or motivation, those types of things that you really find are really prevalent in your experience in the games industry?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that there are very few new problems.
Okay.
Right. They're new takes on the same old problems. And like I said, probably the biggest and most common thing is just I don't really find many people that are resource constrained. Exactly. It's usually about what you're trying to accomplish with what you have in the time that you have. So everything ends up being resource constrained, not because there isn't money or there isn't a team or there isn't talent, but because there just doesn't ever feel like there's enough time and money to do all the things you want to do.
Okay.
So I think really, if you wanted to look for a common theme, it might be that the best job that the best use of my time is as an editor, to try to focus on the things that are going to make the most difference and discard the ones that aren't. A lot of people always say, well, I want this game to be A, B, C, D, or I want this product to be all these things, when in reality the best decisions you can make about a product are what it isn't. It's deciding this is not necessary for our core game loop, or this is not right for our audience. So most of the time I think that's kind of my voice, is to say, hey, there might be a better way to do this, a cheaper way to do this, a more efficient way to do this, or maybe we shouldn't be doing this particular thing at all. And that then gets you a little bit more capacity to focus on the strengths.
Okay, that's pretty good. Speaking of that, if you would indulge me by, just a little bit, for Command and Conquer fans' sake and stuff like that. Where do you kind of see that kind of evolving throughout your time? You've definitely been a very integral part of a lot of that. So I'm just curious to get your perspective on how you see, the Command and Conquer, and specifically, the Tiberium universe type of core part of Command and Conquer evolve, and what you kind of see that may or may not have been necessary for those type of titles and productions. Does that make sense? No, I'm not quite sure on that. Okay, sorry. Yeah, let me rephrase that. Is there anything in your experience with handling Command and Conquer that you feel that may or may not have, that on retrospect, maybe 2020, but be like, okay, hey, maybe we invested too much into, cinematics, or maybe we invested too much into this, in which, maybe our resources could have been allocated better elsewhere, something like that.
Yeah, I guess the one thing where, if I could go back and really refine some things, back way back when we first started C&C, we had decided to save a little bit of time by using IRC chat as a baseline to build out our Westwood Online. And honestly, I think that we had the talent and the ability, and we probably should have bitten the bullet and built our own system more like what Blizzard did with Battle.net, because I think that we never, over the years, we never really could get the time to focus on properly tackling the multiplayer matchmaking and things as well as we like. When I think about the excellence in our product quality, from the stories to the design to the tech, the one place that was constant thorn in our side was just the multiplayer experience was just never quite where we wanted to be, and it was almost always because we had built it upon a foundation that really wasn't designed, specifically for what we were trying to do. I think that one kind of bugged me back in the Westwood days. Once we became part of Electronic Arts and we had the Irvine studio, we had handed over essentially the Command & Conquer franchises to them with Generals. They did Red Alert 2, but that was really a collaborative effort between the Las Vegas and Irvine studios. Once we got to Generals, that really was a different group of people. I wasn't a big fan of losing the cinematics, do them in game, and from a thematic point of view, I wasn't as comfortable with the idea that it was a little bit less fantasy or less near future and more about what was really happening in the world. A little bit too close to reality for me. So from a personal point of view, I wasn't as big a fan of that particular fiction. The execution of those games was quite good, though. They're a lot of fun, and I have no problem with that. So I think those were kind of the things that looking back were not missteps necessarily, but I think that the franchise wasn't given as much attention as it probably could have been and should have been. And then from there, honestly, from that point on, the only reason that the other products didn't quite get to some of the quality levels I would have liked to have seen just had to do with investment. It wasn't the teams, it was the time and money. The RTS genre for everybody except Blizzard is a difficult sell to the publishing organization. I'm really excited about what's happening now in the mobile space, though, because what people are calling massive multiplayer RTS, although I don't really think that's quite the right term for them, but nevertheless, the Clash of Clans styles of games, those are actually really exciting to me, and it's a great space because it's they're drifting ever closer all the time to something that I would think is getting back to the original vision of the Command & Conquer games, which was this idea of having a really true deep strategy game that you had to do in real time. So challenging your thinking as much as it challenges your actions per minute. And I'm really happy about things like MOBAs, where really people talk about MOBAs as if it's a whole new game. Honestly, it was a mod of an RTS game. It wasn't our RTS game, but MOBA is just a constrained RTS, that emphasizes wholly emphasizes actions per minute instead of the really strategic thinking. It's much more tactical. So I like some of the offshoots. I'm certainly a huge fan of League of Legends, even though I'm not a very good player. And I think it's just great. What they're doing is really fun. The learning curve is just brutal. And on mobile, I think there's a lot of opportunity to bring back some of those initial feelings that we had with the C and C days, where you're just delighted and charmed by something.
Okay, great. That actually ties into one of my other questions about how do you kind of see your job or what you've been doing kind of changed throughout the years because of technology, and it definitely sounds like the mobile space has really done a lot with that. But I'm curious if there's anything else more on the back end that more people don't see. Is that as technology moves forward, how does your job or responsibility as a creative director or in the producing role change?
Yeah, we recently. A couple of my friends have been around a long time, had a few more discussions about this. And I think the consensus, and one I would certainly agree with, is that it's really exciting to see how capable all the devices are nowadays, and the level and speed of communication that you can connect devices with is just getting better. I mean, it's Moore's law on steroids. It just keeps getting better and better and better. And with that, it's becoming a lot more expensive to create the content for the consumption for the consumers. It's kind of the same thing that went through when we've added CD-ROMs, games got a lot more expensive. When we added DVDs, they got more expensive. As we got higher resolution, got more expensive. So I think what I'm seeing now is the role I talked about earlier, the creative editor, the person who spends the time thinking deeply about what goes into and what doesn't go into a product, becomes a much more critical role. Because you really the amount of investment you have to make now with that, the audiences are getting much bigger. They're huge now, and the kind of amount of impact you can have on society is huge too. So there's growth across the board, and there's lots of opportunity. So I guess that's what I see as a general theme, is that new devices, new platforms are just making it more and more possible to connect to ever more people, and you have to be even more careful about how do you differentiate your product from others.
Okay. Do you have any goals or expectations either for yourself or any of the current organizations you're part of?
Oh yeah, always, of course. You have to have goals.
Yeah.
But I think the broadest goal for me is, I'm really enjoying this ability to. I'm kind of, in a weird way, I'm kind of in the same role that I was in the latter years of Westwood before we relocated the studios and created EALA. Although I'm not the chief executive officer and the single point of accountability, the creative role I have now is very similar to the one I have then, which is to hopefully add value and participate and help keep things on track and make things move more smoothly, rather than actually spending most of my time tasking and doing the tasks themselves. It's a really wonderful role to be in. So my goal then is to make sure that the companies I'm working with see the value in that and are comfortable that I'm doing the right things for them. And so I'm always sort of tasking myself to make sure that I'm getting a good return on their investment in me. And short of that, I think I don't have any long-term career goals at this point. I'm still in that kind of neat phase of not having a punch a clock for the first time in my life. So now I punch 5 clocks.
Cool. Oh wow. Well, that's always great to be able to be your own boss of sorts, kind of be able to manage your own time and be like, oh hey, this is what I want to say. Hey, and be like, okay. Let's see here. Check. Let's see here. Got that view on the online social trends. Okay, here we go. What would you say are some key qualities for someone to have to get where you are now?
Yeah, I think most of the people that are sort of in the same career space that I'm at, they're a little bit more focused than I am. But they've gone through the same thing, which is to be a really valuable creative leader, technical leader. I think it's really important to have gone through the jobs of doing the jobs that you're directing. So one of the things that one of the reasons I took after being a CEO of a public subsidiary, I went to being a vice president of studios for Zynga, was that I really wanted to understand the PM role in a very personal way. And so the first 6 months that I was there, I worked in PM jobs. Almost was trained to be a PM there. In fact, definitely was trained to be a PM there. And that way I felt so much more comfortable when I was made general manager of a studio that I understood that job. It was the only job that I hadn't really done, the only job category that's really important that I hadn't done. I mean, there was of course audio and some other things that I haven't done in my career, but at least that's all part of development. So that's I think the most important thing is make sure that if you want to get to the point where you're directing things, the best thing you can do to get there is to be really good at actually doing those jobs. Become as good as you possibly can, and then spend some time on personal development, leadership skills, and development, team development skills, because you can choose in this industry. It's really fun. You can choose to be a specialist, and you can make probably just about as much money and be just as impactful to be a specialist. You look at somebody like a Sweeney who does the Unreal engines, or Carmack, just specialists as programmers. That's what they do, but they're so good at it, they can be wildly successful. You don't have to become a manager to be successful, but I think it's important to have done the jobs that you intend to manage before you manage them. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know that the strict MBA course coming out of school, jumping in and running a company I think you're seriously hamstrung when it comes to the difficulties of the games industry and how many different disciplines you're trying to merge. My personal value set has been because I was good at a couple different things, but I don't know if that's as realistic anymore. The tools are so vast, and it's so hard to keep up on the programming languages and the best practices that it may be at this point that somebody coming into the industry, their best track is to be as good at their particular love and discipline as they can, and then work their way into managing people that do the same things, and they'll find themselves in this kind of point in their career after a decade or so.
Okay. What do you kind of hope to see evolve in your industry in the next 5 to 10 years? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it's not even that long. 5 years, I don't even know what's going to happen in 5 years.
Oh yeah.
In the next 5 months, it's. I want to see. I guess what I'd like to see is more and more people, which is already happening, perceive games as another form of entertainment, just another quite legitimate and quite normal form of entertainment. There was a point in time going way back to the music video days where MTV introduced the world to watching your music instead of just listening to your music. And there was a point in time where, people that would ask people in the streets, and they'd say, "Well, what did you think of that song?" "Well, I haven't seen it yet." They weren't. It was an obvious and instant thought that this must be the right way to enjoy music. And with iPods and everything else, we've kind of gone back to not, and the whole video thing has died. But I'd like to see games kind of be in that same category where if somebody says, "Hey, have you," right now they might say, "Hey, have you seen Lord of the Rings? Have you read the book?" Nobody says, "Have you seen Lord of the Rings? Have you played the game? Have you read the book?" And I think that I'd like to see our industry get to the point where we're so much a part of intellectual property development and importance culturally that it becomes a natural question of, did you play the game? And did you really experience it?
Huh. Wow. That's definitely a good step forward.
Yeah, it's a different way of looking at it. It's making our industry and our products as socially relevant as any other form of entertainment. And I think we're making very good strides and heading in the right direction.
Well, yeah. No, the other day I was actually talking with my professor, and I was talking about I was looking on LinkedIn and what jobs they had available for Blizzard, but blah 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 Blizzard. But anyways, and then they had stuff looking for educational and organizational development stuff, and I was telling my professor that, and she's like, those tech companies seem to be doing pretty good, don't they? And I'm like, okay, that's actually an interesting way of putting it. That's taking it to the next level, treating game companies as tech companies more than just game companies. And I think that type of evolution is natural and good and very interesting to me. Okay. Let me see. I'm curious now. Where do you answered this a little bit in the last interview with Kristen, but where do you kind of see the place of Command and Conquer being, even though it's like 15 years old and stuff like that now? And what would you say is really would really need to be done if that were to return? Because currently what we only have right now is Tiberium Alliances, which is a different type of experience.
Right. It's actually just a it certainly doesn't
hurt.
It doesn't reach back into the existing use of the franchise. It's a different exploration of the franchise.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big player for Tiberium Alliances, so I can't really comment on it.
Yeah,
but
neither am I.
I think if somebody were to hire me and say, what would it take to sort of do what would be, in my opinion, right and appropriate for C and C as a franchise, it would be a very big bet, because you'd want to go after after the kind of executional quality that StarCraft 2 had, because that's the kind of bar you would deserve to go after. If on the other hand, if you said, well, we have this wonderful franchise with a really rich world and great characters, and it's kind of just been shelved a bit, could we explore more of that? There's a lot of different products you could build. The guys out there doing Renegade X are proving that to me. It's very cool stuff. So there's lots of other things you might do in the universe. If you strictly want to do an RTS game, though, I think you would have to go after the esport, quality of execution, and that would take more than just money. It would take the right group of people, and it would take I would think several iterations to get it right. And I just don't know that many big companies currently have the appetite to do those types of things. Blizzard is almost singular. There's a few others. You've got Valve, Blizzard, Naughty Dog, a few that really they'll really go out on a limb and push themselves to the absolute limits.
Mm-hmm. But interesting about those companies is they seem to have their own thing, and it's like, hey, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, they would. None of those would do C and C.
Oh no. But
you'd have to take that. You'd have to take it to that level. You'd have to have a company that has the global reach to publish it, and you'd have to have the design team and the execution team and the investment to say that you're going after that space. The biggest difficulties and pains in the last few Command & Conquers had nothing at all to do with the creative ideas or even the quality of the teams. It just had to do with it that it is just so expensive to try to go after. You just couldn't go after all the things you wanted to get into the product. They're just really, really big.
Yeah.
And that's a bit sad. I wish that had not gone that way, but I understand it. RTS games from a commercial point of view were returning less and less and less, and sort of in a little bit of a downward spiral when it comes to how much you're willing to invest versus what you think you can make. And since EA owns the CNC license and EA's process is sales forecast driven, I don't know who could make a compelling argument to any salesman, which salesman is willing to risk their career on a team delivering something that would post the kind of numbers that StarCraft 2 posted to make it worthwhile. It would be a very difficult job, a very difficult sales job.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody will license from them. I mean, I know EA's looked at licensing CNC. They might even have licensed. I know they were looking at doing it at one point. And if they have, I don't know if got it. But that would be potentially a way where it would take a step forward as well. But I hope that if anybody did, whether it be the Red Alert universe or the CNC universe, that they take a lot of time talking to the somebody in the fan community that really understands the fiction and understands the canon, because it's a long and complex world.
Oh yeah.
And like so many things that have evolved over long periods of time, there are some contradictions and such, but there is an understood and well accepted canon that should be followed and expanded.
Okay. Speaking of the market of real time strategy and stuff like that, Frank Packy, I'm sure you're aware. He is working on Grey Goo, and Grey Goo's been released. I don't know if you've had a chance to talk with him about it or talk to anybody in Petroglyph that you guys used to work with with about Grey Goo and what their kind of success or projections may or may not be.
I just got back from a long trip, and so I have not had a chance to talk to them since they did the actual launch on Steam and such. I did get a chance to play the game a little bit while it was under development, which was a lot of fun. But I've read some good stuff about it. I just don't know how it's doing on the sales side, so I don't know. I don't know if it's meeting their expectations or not. I think that the game was really cool. They came out pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. So from your experience and from your, you seem like that they've captured or at least done their best to capture the kind of original type of feel that they were trying to originally go after. Do you think, or?
Yeah, definitely. This is this feels like, and I want to say this carefully because I don't want people to think it is an old RTS exactly like it was in the past. That's not the case. It's quite modern, but it gives you the same feeling. So. I think that there's a certain authenticity. You can tell that these guys have worked on these kinds of products before, all the way back to Empire is what I was thinking. Empire War. Right?
Oh yeah.
I can't remember that. Yeah. So they actually did a great job on that one too. So I think that this has been a really neat expression, and I really liked the early days. I haven't played the final version yet, so I don't know how it all ended up. But the concept for the goo was really fun and made it feel like something different and interesting. What the few reviews I've read have also said the same thing, that the goo faction is just it's a really fun thing to do because it's so different. So I think they got a little bit something new and mostly familiar and modern update. So I think they've got the right formula, and I hope a lot of people go out and try it to keep encouraging that kind of development, because I think it's a great genre, and I'd like to see more products in it.
Yeah, definitely. So if you were to pinpoint, other certain issues that RTS companies, or I'm not RTS companies, companies that take on RTS products, what would you say are the most important challenges? You kind of highlighted the budget, kind of had the time investment. Well, let's assume that a company exists, or a team exists that is out there mysteriously, and because I try to do this on a hypothetical, be like, okay, let's assume that the resources exist. Let's say that that we don't know who these teams are. Let's say that there's a competent team out there and they have the resources to make this happen. What kind of create an RTS? Yeah, that was a 30-minute mark. I don't know if you have to go, but
No, okay.
but I'm just curious, from your perspective, going back to the kind of consultant thing, and if you were coming in this company and they're like, hey, we're gonna do a classic RTS, maybe if you were to come in a little bit earlier in the Grey Goo development cycle, or if you'd be coming in on a new project, be like, okay, these are the potential pitfalls you have to be aware of for RTS games, not just about budget and team composition and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think to make what I would call a classic RTS, and there's all sorts of things. So real-time strategy is a broad enough term to encompass a lot of different products. But if we're talking about the classic RTS, C and C, StarCraft, Grey Goo, Empire War, I'd say the first place you want to start, because everybody seems to start, I think, on their sort of factions, and that's certainly important. But I would start with the multiplayer. I'd start with the multiplayer and trying to balance lots of different diverse gameplay, because I think one of the cornerstones of classic RTS gameplay is that I pick a side, if you will, a faction, and that faction has lots of different tools than the other factions, but that they're implicitly balanced against each other, and that ends up being the longest pole when it comes to getting it to feel and play right. Once you have people playing against other people in factions, and you can start getting human beings to figure out all the ways to break it and screw with the balance. Once you get that all balanced and working, it's quite easy at that point much easier at that point to understand what the AI should be doing to make a fun single player experience. So I guess what I would say to anybody who's starting an RTS is start with your core design of your factions, however many you're going to have. Make all your assumptions about how you're going to get them balanced, and execute the multiplayer stuff first and foremost. That's where I would start. And then I would build the world out from that experience, because that's not that multiplayer is the only thing that matters, but it will be the most informative part. And if you start from the other side in the story and start building it all in and all that, it becomes much more difficult to get that multiplayer stuff right later, because that's going to inform some of your decisions. It's a tactical way of approaching it. You may have a universe, you may have a concept for that, and you may have, here's A side, B side C. I see a lot of people when they go about it, they kind of vaguely describe what they are. They focus on one side, and they kind of go off building assets and story and maps and all sorts of other stuff before they really have had a chance to understand what the core game is going to be. Start with the core game and build out from there.
Okay. So you would say comprehensive balancing of each of the potential sides or factions, and then.
Yeah, I would say the first for any game or any app or any experience, I think the first thing you want to do is decide, cut away all of the noise, get rid of everything else in your idea that doesn't matter, and get to what is most core. So if you're doing something like Dead Space, that's all about the feeling of horror and terror, and you want to get that experience working the best you possibly can before you're worried about whether or not you can have the tech to cut off limbs and stuff. You want to start there. If you're doing a war game, even a shooter, you want to start with what is the role of the player in that shooter? Is it going to be lots of different roles? And if so, then is it a setting game? So it might be that the setting is the most important thing and you want to just get that feel perfect, and that's fine too. In the case of RTS games, the core of the experience is the balancing of real-time actions against strategic choices, and I really feel that the best place to find out whether or not you've got something special is to start with the multiplayer, and I think that applies to asynchronous strategy games as well, where a lot of people start off with just copying something that exists and then trying to modify it a little bit. Those games rarely perform well because people look at it, they play it for a minute, and they go, yeah, it's just like blank, 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 and they don't bother. Whereas if you're going to do something that's interesting, you're going to start from a core experience that's informed by what it is that's unique about your product, and you build it out from there.
Okay. Interesting.
There's a couple products I'm working on where I did get in early enough right now that I feel pretty excited about. I can't speak to them because I'm not part of their things, but there's a product I'm working on right now that I think is really exciting, and its core mechanic is super compelling, and it's in the general space of a strategy game. It's not. It's still real. It's kind of real time. It's got real time elements in it. So yeah, it's a strategy game, and I think that's what's fun about this whole industry is that every time you think, well, it's all been done before, somebody comes out with some really innovative take on it, and you go, wow, that's a really cool take on it, and it becomes a very interesting product. And many times those are the ones that are most successful.
Okay, very, very good. I don't know if you have to go, just to let you know we've been here for about 45 minutes, so it's okay. I can talk for a little bit longer, but I'm just letting you know. I don't know if you have to be anywhere. Okay. I want to give Matt here to answer some ask some questions here if you have any. I'm sorry it's been so long, but yeah, Matt, did you have any questions? And then I'll see if I can come up with any more questions over here.
Well, actually, you've kind of gone over most of my questions that I would have asked. So, I mean, yeah. That's a really good interview. That gives me a good introspective. I guess I could ask you this though. I'm more of an artist, so I actually create stuff. So that's what I do. As an artist, I don't really have any formal education as much as I have just basically plowed myself into modeling programs, learning how to texture and how to animate, and all that good stuff. From your point of view, is there a trade-off between the two? I guess I'm not necessarily wording myself right.
Well, I think Matt's asking more about the trade-off when you go into the industry or when you're coming into this or being part of it between experience versus just a degree, experience versus education.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I'm wholly biased in the sense that I believe it's really important to get an actual degree, and that may sound odd from the guy who didn't do it, but my company was already 7 people strong, and we had already done multiple projects before I finally just couldn't do it all. It wasn't because I didn't want to. What happens with a degree, and I've lived it myself, and you'll talk to lots of people with experience that have been accomplished, that degree shows that you can actually start and finish something, and that you have that kind of stick to it and gumption. Also, if you've taken a university degree, it means that you have lots of different experiences to draw upon. As an artist, specifically, since we're talking about art, it's really great to be able to draw upon other disciplines and other experiences in education because it helps to inspire. It helps to inspire a creative thought. When I was hiring artists at Westwood Studios, I required 10 years illustration experience, but I didn't care whether they knew how to use a computer or not. At that time, it was much easier to teach them how to use a computer to create artwork than it was to teach them how to draw or paint. I don't know if I could be quite so bold today. I don't think I could easily say that anybody who's done 10 years experience can learn Maya. It's like that's a little bit different. There's quite a bit of technical expertise that is required. But I would still stand by the guns that an education, a true university degree, will at points in your career help you vault much faster into the next tier. And so I think it is important, and I think I would hope that anybody reading an interview or listening would go out and take to heart the fact that you'll always have that degree, you'll always have that education. It's never a bad thing to have it. It's no substitute for experience, but experience is a faint substitute for education. So I think they're both pretty important.
Okay, gotcha. Matt, did you have anything else right now?
No, not too much. I just, this is something that I personally, I went to a good school, whatnot, good education. Just I was in one of those families where basically I didn't really get the full chance to go to college. So that's what happened with me there. I tried not to let that bring me down, though. So that's the reason why I basically just decided, hey, I'm an artist. This is what I want to do. But I'll take that to heart and try to see what I can do to be able to try to put myself through school. So thanks.
Well, if you're, the reality is if you've already stepped into the industry and you're working, you're doing the stuff. I mean, you'll get there eventually, right? Like I tell my son who's just about to graduate from USC, it's like what's really good about having that education is there will be a point in your professional development where having the education will shortcut numbers of years off of the path. In the aggregate, it's a very efficient 4 years that ends up giving you a lot of value, 4 or 5 years in this case. But it's still an efficient use of your time. It's expensive, and I don't know if I can quite defend the cost of university educations because they've gotten to be so expensive. But if you have the opportunity, it's an amazing thing to do. If you're already in the industry, already moving forward, and you've self-taught. You can certainly be a success without the education. It just means you're going to have to get the equivalent of that education on the job in the industry while you're also working. And this brings me to one point which I think might be something interesting for you. Once you do get that position at a company, if you don't already have one, one of the things that's really important is to realize that your personal growth is not the company's responsibility. It's your own responsibility. And so when you're not working, you should be working on your skill set to improve your skills and get better at what you're doing. And I've had some artists over the past feel like that was like asking them to work after work. And I'm like, well, if you're an artist, you should be doing artwork.
That's exactly how I feel too.
Yeah, writers write all the time. Right? They don't stop writing just because they wrote all day on that screenplay, or they go home and they write their next story. And that's what I think the takeaway would be. The most important takeaway is no matter whether you have the education or don't have the education, there's no shortcut to skills. It takes a lifetime to get the kind of skills that are in the highest demand in the world. So you have to do it all the time. There's no substitute.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I was actually just I was actually looking on someone posted on Facebook, even though I hate Facebook, asking, help me please, I need to get into the game industry, tell me what classes I need to take to achieve this. And I'm just sitting there going, oh my god. Well, first of all, if you don't know the difference between need and want, okay, get out. Second is classes to become, it's like that's the issue with some of the younger generation these days is that they expect, because school teaches people to, like, if you check boxes and show up and do this, you'll get something and then you'll be able to move on. But like the real world isn't like that. You don't get handed a checklist and saying do all these things and you will be perfectly fine. So it's like, hey, but I don't know. Anyways, I'm just musing on that.
I think that there's a point to be made in that though, because without the education. It's definitely something that I have done with personal development on my own part. My sister did get that chance to be able to go to college, so she has also kind of stepped in and helped me out.
Good.
And so with that, I've gained the personal skills and knowledge to be able to do these things myself. So one thing that she has basically taught me more than anything is that it really just all comes down to you and how much work you put into your own personal development and being able to gain those skills that are necessary.
Yep, I would second all of that. I mean, that's exactly right. Yeah. To the comments that you were making about the person who wants to get in the games industry, when somebody asks me that, I say, well, go make a game. And they go, well, I don't know how. It's like, well, guess what? There's this thing called Google. I'll Google that for you. Turns out you have something in your pocket, a device in your pocket that can make games and that can play games, and everybody in the world can do it now. It's completely democratized. There's no reason you can go out to if you've got an Apple, you can go out get Xcode and you can start whipping away. And are they going to be great games? No, but that's okay. Not in the beginning, anyways. But you'll get a good idea of how it works. And I think. I think that just like anything else, if you want to be a game maker, go make games. If you want to be an art director, go, do artwork and work with artists and find yourself doing the work first, and then help try to get some creative direction. Try to move yourself up those ranks. If you want to be a programmer, then go start programming. You don't have to wait for a class in school to do it. The education is just there to teach you to learn and teach you to find the answers that you need, and to expose you to things that you would otherwise probably opt not to take. So that's why I'm such a big fan of university educations. It's a pain in the ass that you have to take a foreign language. It seems ridiculous that you have to go do political science or something that seems completely out of your things. But I wish I had taken business in college. I wish I had taken finance in college. It was a lot harder learning it later.
Oh yeah, no, I'm here at UC Irvine, and it's like, okay, you have to do all these things, and I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, general education, do it. And I'm like, all right, I understand.
Hey, go Anteaters, man.
Yeah, go Anteaters. Woot woot.
I like to liken it to this. Just because you know how to drive or use a Lamborghini doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to build a Lamborghini. So that's something that I like to kind of refer it to.
Yeah, that's actually
like playing a game doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be good at making.
Oh yeah, that's one of the hugest pet peeves I personally have is people who are like, yeah, so you're playing games, that means you're making equals playing. I'm like, no. And then they're like, they just don't understand. But also, I talked to a friend of mine, and he actually went to school at DigiPen, and then he dropped out for a couple of reasons. But he actually said specifically to me, like when I asked him what was wrong with DigiPen and this and that, and he said, "There's nothing wrong with DigiPen. I just thought that, that I like to make games, therefore I like to play games, therefore I like to make them." And I'm like, okay, no, I'm sorry, but yeah, no. Let's see if I have any other general questions. Not quite. Actually, I do. I'm just curious. What was your kind of? Because you talked a little bit about that in the last interview with Andrews about your specific role in Westwood. So like I'm curious. Like the other part of what I kind of realize a producer is about is. And hear about is that you're basically a talent manager, kind of, and how you deal with those different personalities. So I'm just curious from your experience and what you've seen, what are some challenges, what are some bonuses, what are some different ways that you interact with different people that work and think in different ways that are like, artists, engineers, coders, writers, stuff like that.
You're bringing up a great point. Which is the best producers can. They can speak code, they can speak art, they can speak design. If they're producing, you would hope that they're not better designers than the designer that's working for them. And that goes for all the disciplines, right? Because if your best designer in the company is your head producer or your executive producer, then you need to go get a better designer. And sometimes it does happen, right? Sometimes it happens like you might have a Tim Schafer who's designing his products, who's effectively the executive producer, but also designing all his games, and that's fine. And those are personalities and stuff. So this is all rules have their exceptions, but in general, a great producer knows how to speak to all those different disciplines and knows how to properly support and nurture the efforts of lots of talented people to get the best work out of everybody. And so you really are doing the thing that you're doing whatever needs to be done to unlock capacity for your talent. And that sounds kind of like vague and very difficult to describe, and that's why it's a hard job to do, because it is vague and difficult to describe. The job of a producer changes every single day. They don't do the same thing day in and day out. The thing that they do that isn't part of their job, that is just necessary, is the simple kind of asset allocation and task management and task prioritizing and things like that. Those are all the challenging. If you're the single point of the business accountability, if you don't have a business manager, then you're probably doing the, I only have so many resources, which features are going to make it and which ones aren't, because the designer wants to do everything. The artist wants all the art to be done. Programmers want all this cool refactoring of the code because, they need to fix the plumbing, and everybody's barking for the time and money, and you have to decide what works and what doesn't work. You're the one who makes that arbitration. But when you're good at the job, everybody on the team feels like they're doing their best every day. And it feels magical, and they go, wow, I worked at that company and there was never any problems. It's like, oh no, there were plenty of problems.
You just didn't know about them.
Yeah, you got a good producer, because a good producer doesn't expose all of that to the team. They protect their team and their talent from worrying about all of the perils of the job and just focusing on getting their best work.
Yeah, no, that's definitely well said. It's like, hey, everything's going smoothly. That means things are going well, and people know what they're doing, which is good. But at the same time, they're not supposed to hear about, like, oh hey, we're having a conflict with person X over there in department Y because he really likes this to use technology this way, and we kind of want him to do something else, or blah blah blah. It's kind of like, hey. But yeah, no, it's pretty good. All right, I'm just letting you know, I have about 7 minutes left or so, about 10 minutes left, and then
I'm going to have to go here, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Louis. It was really, really, really interesting. If you wouldn't mind, can I have permission to? Well, I'm not going to share this everywhere on the internet because I'm not one of those freaking people like Facebook people. But can I have permission to put this in house with? Actually, me and Matt, I didn't tell you, but we are actually. Well, besides this project, I'm actually working on another project for modding Command & Conquer 3, and cool. when we have more time, maybe if you're interested, I could show you a couple things in that.
Could you ever just send you a link, and in your free time, if you want to, you could check it out.
But at the same time,
would you mind too much, Mr. Lewis, if I could get your Skype contact just to have it? Nothing else.
No problem. Eric has.
Yeah, you should be able to add it here. Also, I don't know if it'd be too much to ask, but would it be possible to get an audience with Kopacki? We have an audio person, and I think if they could start to talk, just be like, hey,
send me an email, and I'll make an email introduction for you.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, and then we'll see if anything happens.
I wasn't sure what you were asking. You said you wanted to use this in house. You're talking about the recording, just playing the.
Yeah, sure. Just playing the recording in-house. By in-house, I just mean within our development team. I'm not the big fan of posting it on online, and everyone's like, oh hey, but probably I think Kristen might want a copy, and maybe I think she wanted to post it on her community Battlecast Primetime again. For a more formalized interview. So I'm like, oh sure. She wanted to be here. Something just came up with her, and I was like, okay.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't mind. Again, this is a very casual format, but I don't mind that. I'm pretty sure I haven't said anything untoward, so it should be fine.
Exactly. No one can see you. I know, of course not. No, I'm just gonna. Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot. I don't want to overwhelm you with what we have, so I'll just send you the public information, or I'll send you the public information, and then on your free time you can flip around with it. And then if you're intrigued enough to look at the more get access to the private intro, I'm more than willing to set something up. And
okay, I'm schedule challenged, so if I don't get back right away.
Oh no, it's okay. No.
I'll definitely take a look at it.
Yeah, we as a mod in between indie, our scheduling is a little bit, not as defined as yours. We're just kind of trying to release alpha by summer of this year, so it's like, hey.
Okay. Well, send it to me for sure. I might have my son look at it too, because Tony loves the mod, so he'll probably have some opinions too.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. For sure, and I'm sure that more discussions will happen. One last curious thing. I'm just curious. Did you work with Skags at Zynga? Were you guys were there at the same time, right?
We were. But when I came in, I was working in the PM roles while I was doing my on-the-job training. He was finishing up Cityville, and then by the time I was in the role of GM and actually running the studios. He was down in Texas, so I didn't get a chance to work with him again.
Okay.
But Mark was at Tetracon, and myself and Brett brought him in to reimagine and rebuild the Irvine studios. And so I worked closely with Mark for many years at Westwood. And then ultimately when that became its own EA studio, and then it's EA LA even worked with Mark again. So I've worked for years. So I've got a lot of respect for Mark. He's a driven individual.
Oh, he's great, great. I was just curious because I'm here down at Irvine, and I contacted him to interview him for an earlier part of this project, and I was like, hey, and he's like, sure, hey. But thanks a lot, Louis. Okay. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Take care, guys.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thanks. Bye.
All right, bye.